Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop here at Flat Six Motorsports. My name is Ivan, and today we're going to show you how to install Cete Automotive's active suspension control system on this Panamera right here. Let's get into it. So the installation of the Cete module on the Panamera is a little more involved than some of the other applications in that we have to run some wiring from one sensor on this side to the other sensor on the other side, and we're gonna have to do the same thing on the rear, and the front and rear communicate with each other through like a Bluetooth signal. So what we're gonna go ahead and do, we're gonna start out by removing some of these panelings so we can run the wires from the height sensors on either side. You're gonna need a combination of T25 Torx bits and 10mm sockets. All right, so now that we have the under panels removed off the vehicle, we're gonna go ahead and install this wiring harness. We have two sides of it, basically. These are gonna install in line for where the level sensors are. So this is gonna go on the driver's side. We're gonna run the harness across, out of the way of anything that's moving, suspension, drive shaft, steering rack, all that stuff. We're gonna go ahead and stake it along here and attach it and secure it. And then we have a very identical setup that's gonna go on the passenger side. So these are gonna connect in line with the level sensors on each side. And then lastly, we have the connector for the controller that we're gonna mount once all the wires are run, and we're gonna mount the controller here so it can communicate with the controller that's gonna be installed on the rear axle next. So let's go ahead and get these wires run, and we'll go on the next step. All right, so once you have the connectors placed in line of the level sensors, as you can see, clipped in here and then clipped in here, we're gonna go ahead and use some zip ties to go ahead and tie the harness to the factory harness, kind of keep things out of the way, and we're gonna take it all the way down underneath the vehicle where we plug in the control unit, and we'll get that all kind of tied up and squared away and get all the wires tucked out of place, and then we'll move over to the rear axle.
All right, so now that we've got the front all secured, just want to give you a quick walkthrough of kind of like where we are running the wires from the sensors on either side, and also where we put the control module. So if you want to go ahead and look up here, so after we got the wires installed in here, we have them kind of following along on the factory wiring from the sensor on the other side, and we kind of left some slack to leave for suspension movement and just secured it to the frame. And then we have the wire running right along here, kind of underneath. There's already a wiring harness there, so we kind of attached it to that. And this is kind of where we meet the wire from the other sensor coming across, secured the same way. And then we secured the control unit to this bracket right here. And then any excess wire is kind of tucked up under there, kind of wrapped together. So that stays up and out of the way. And the unit is pointed towards the rear of the vehicle because it has to wirelessly connect with the rear module. So now we're going to move on to the rear module, and we're going to get that all set up. It's set up in a similar way with additional wiring for power. So that we'll have to run wire into the cabin and tap into some of the wiring that's in the trunk floor. So I'll show you that next. All right, so now we're going to work on the rear axle and install the module. First thing what we're going to do is we need to take off the floor panel for the cargo area. We're going to do that using a T30 Torx to take out basically the tie downs on the back panel, and then we're going to take the panel out, and that'll give us access to the wiring underneath, and then the grommet that we need to get access to run the wires from under the car into the cabin area to tap in for power. All right, so now that we have the cargo flooring kind of out of the way, go ahead and point out real quick the grommet that we need to go ahead and remove. So this is the grommet right down here. We're gonna pop that out, and that'll allow us to run the wire up from inside and then along the wiring harness here. And then we're gonna tap into the CAN network harness straight here at these two wires. We're gonna tap into the CAN network, and that way they'll let the module go ahead and control the suspension as needed. So let's go ahead and get that done. All right, so it's the other side of this cavity here is a little bit hard to see from underneath the vehicle. I'm gonna use a piece of heavy gauge wire. You can use like a hanger or anything you have. It's kind of like a fishing line. So we're gonna go ahead and send that down. And then once we get back underneath the car, I can attach the wiring I need to run back up here, just tape it to it, and I can pull it back through fairly easily. So let's go ahead and fish that down, and then go ahead and grab it from underneath. All right, so here's our fishing wire that we threaded from underneath. If you're having a hard time finding like where the outlet is, the grommet, basically if you look underneath the car and in between the suspension and the rear axle and just go straight up, you'll see the opening in the grommet. So that's kind of where we saw the red wire. Helps, it's red, easy to find. But yeah, it's been up there. So what we're gonna do is once we run our wires, the sensors, we're gonna attach the wires that we need to wire into the CAN bus to this. We're just gonna tape them on and then go back inside the car and pull them back through. That way we'll be able to connect to the car. Once that's all finished, we'll button everything up underneath here. We should be good to go. All right, so now we have our wiring kind of completed, at least on the underside of the vehicle. We have the sensor harnesses hooked up. We have our master control module sitting on this little platform right here. And then we have, if you look right up here, we have all of our connections done on this side. And then we have the wires running all along the rear subframe over to the other side. So you see we have them connected into the left rear sensor here. We just took the link out temporarily, just move it out of the way. And now what we're going to do is we have the rest of our wiring harness that has to go into the cabin. We have it hooked up to our fish. And so we're going to lower the car back down, pull the fish up, and get this wiring back into the car and go ahead and finish hooking these up to the CAN network to get our signal. So let's go up top and check it out. Now we're back to the rear cargo area. We have our fish, and we're going to go ahead and start start pulling this back up through. Hopefully nothing gets caught. And there we go. All right, so there's our wire from underneath. We're gonna pull that up through as much as we can until we get some tension. All right, so we've got tension there. We're not gonna pull that one too difficult. All right, then we'll go ahead and just take this off this fish. So the grommet we removed earlier, I'm just gonna make a small incision right here and run the new wire through that. That way I can put the grommet back into the body harness. We're not gonna have any leaks or anything like that, so nothing can get back up in there. We'll make our connections, and then we'll show you what to get wrapped up there. So now that we have our wires pulled through the grommet in the back, what we're gonna do is we're gonna run them over to where we're gonna tap into the CAN network over here. If you go over to the passenger side of the rear cargo area, you're gonna go to this black connector right here and kind of separate, I've kind of separated them already, these two orange wires. They're twisted together. One's in orange and green, the other one's in orange and brown. And what we're gonna do is they provided us with some kind of quick taps. And so what we're gonna do is tap one of the wires from the kit to each of the two wires, and that'll give us our signal to the seat module. Basically, we're gonna match up the colors a little bit here. We got the orange and black is gonna be going to the orange and green, and then the orange and brown from here is gonna go to the orange and brown on the vehicle. So let me show you how to do that. We are gonna use a set of pliers because you don't have enough hand strength to basically close these down. So once we get these in place and crimped, we're gonna use a pair of pliers to make sure we have a good contact.
little tricky because you don't get a lot of room. All right, that should do it. All right, now the wires are kind of crimped in place. What we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of make everything neat and tidy, gather up the excess wire and kind of zip tie it out of the way, make it nice and neat, put everything back together, give a double check underneath and put up any panels that we need to put up and zip tie anything you need to do any out of the way. Make sure everything's clear of the suspension, drive shaft, steering, such and such. Give everything a good once over and then we should be good to go.